once Microsoft are able to start offering RPA solutions at £6 per person per month, for instance, then that's going to be a huge shake-up for the RPA vendors out there and the way in which they license and sell their products.
Welcome to the Agile Digital Transformation Podcast, where we explore different aspects of digital transformation and digital experience with your host, Tim Butera, Content and Community Manager at AgileDrop.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Our guest today is David Biden, CEO of Human Plus, a UK technology company that brings automation closer to humans. This episode's topic is RPA, or Robotic Process Automation, and how successfully implementing RPA can help in your digital transformation efforts. Welcome, David. It's great to have you with us today. Would you like to add anything to the introduction?
Hey, Tim. Very nice to meet you. No, I think that's fine. We'll get into some great conversations today, talk around robotic process automation, and I'll tell you a bit more about Human Plus as well.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to learning more about it, and I suggest we start with the basics. So what exactly is robotic process automation?
So robotic process automation, or RPA, it's actually got many names. It's often termed intelligent automation, digital workforce, digital workers. It goes under many names. So robotic process automation it's effectively robotic software that allows companies, organizations to transact automatically. So what does that really mean? Well, it allows you to push and pull data between systems within your organization in an automated way. So normally instead of a human doing it. It's often, for a lot of organizations we work with, is the first step towards AI. It is not AI. That's a whole field of technology which this doesn't sit into. But what it does is it gets organizations thinking about how they can work differently, about how they can have machines, in quotes, or sort of software doing tasks and whole jobs for them instead of humans. Normally what happens, I'm going to get into this quite a lot a bit later on, so I won't go into the detail now. But it often doesn't replace humans. That's a slight myth, I would say. It often augments them.
Oh, nice. I think we got 3 of the common misconceptions out of the way right at the beginning. So it's not AI, because I think many people would kind of just automatically equate it with AI. But it's also the same as digital workforce, which probably people would think is something else. And you have to have both humans and software kind of working together. Otherwise, you can't have the best possible outcome.
Yeah, exactly. So how we normally see it on a sliding scale is robotic process automation in its most basic form, push and pulls the data from different systems and things like that. Intelligent automation is another phrase you'll commonly hear. And what that is, that's robotic process automation, but with elements of artificial intelligence added to it. So natural language processing, optical character recognition, and then moving on further from that, you sort of do get into your sphere of AI.
Interesting stuff. And how exactly does RPA aid digitalization or digital transformation?
That's a great question. So often, some companies will come at it from digital transformation versus RPA. Totally, in my opinion, the incorrect way to do it. They should really be going hand in hand. So if you're doing it correctly, then what you should really be doing is, as you're going through your digital transformation, is using RPA to make efficiencies on the back end. We often start in HR and finance and in areas like that. So take a look at your internal processes, how you can do them better, how you can reduce your risks, how you can reduce your errors, how you can do things faster internally. What you should then also be doing is looking at the front end as well, so the customer service element within customer service teams, but from the moment that the customer starts to transact with you. And what that will do is that will improve your customer response times. So if you've got a trigger of a customer, filling out a form or sending an email or whatever it might be, and then you've automated that process through your organization, resulting in a customer output, well, then obviously you've just drastically improved your response time to your customer if it's been fully automated, as opposed to jumping between different human teams, as it were. What we like to do is couple robotic process automation with service design. So obviously service design looks at the redesign of end-to-end services within an organization. And we do a very similar thing. It's just that we use automation within that service redesign. To give you a bit of an example of that, what often happens in an organization is we had a company we were working with, and they do rent arrears as they're a housing association.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Can you repeat that? What do they do?
They rent arrears. They're a housing association.
Oh, cool. Okay, thanks.
So what they wanted to do is completely transform the way in which they obtain the rent from their tenants. And they've got tens of thousands of tenants. They wanted to make it more digital, easier to pay, easier to transact, less of a burden on the current organisation. But that was a big sort of 12 to 18 month project. It's one of the most important processes in their entire organisation. It goes across almost every team in the organisation in some way, shape or form. And it was a big undertaking. And normally the standard path for them would be to go out and hire an external consultancy to come in to analyse and review the process, and then effectively take that 12 to 18 months to transform that process, that service. Now what they're looking to do is effectively hire somebody like us. What that we will then do is we'll automate as many parts of that process as we can. That will probably take more like 3 months to do. And the objective of that is to free up the people that currently carry out this process now from multiple different teams. They will then become the internal team that then does the service redesign of their own internal service. What that means, they don't have to spend the money on external consultants that will take a bunch of time learning their organisation and learning their business and things like that. They might have to draft in a few contractors for some of the more nuanced points of service design and things like that. But they'll really be able to do it themselves. What we keep talking about at Human Plus is, whilst automation is awesome, the technology is awesome and things like that, the real success that you get with an RPA project or an automation project is when you focus on what the humans are going to be doing after you've automated the processes or the services or the tasks that they're currently doing now. That is the gold. That is where you should focus all of your attention, or as much of your attention as possible. Yes, it's super important to choose the right tech, but there is 5 to 10 very, very good low-cost solutions to choose from out there. Choosing the right one for your organisation, to be honest, it shouldn't take more than 2 to 4 weeks to be able to do that. But yeah, focusing on what the humans do once you've carried out the automation is really where you get the organisational change piece. That's where you get the real return on investment. Often what we'll be brought in to do is automate some HR processes or some finance processes or some customer service or something like that. Well, then that's 50% of the project. The other 50% of the project is redeploying these people into other areas of the business. And that could be, we've redeployed people into fundraising for some charities that we work with so that they generate more revenue. Redeployed people into sales positions. We've redeployed people into pharmacy teams, and we've sort of done it into customer services, R&D, design, all the front end areas of your business that drive revenue, that drive growth, and drive customer or citizen satisfaction, really.
Well, yeah, that's a key point, because the way I understand it is the main goal of automating all these processes is to enable humans to work better and to streamline their work. So it should be kind of the end goal. You couldn't have one without the other.
Yeah, very much so. And look, you will be able to save through natural attrition in your organisation. If you've got an idea of sort of wiping out teams of 30 people through the use of robots, it's so rare that actually happens. That's not the right way to approach it in my eyes. That's why we're called Human Plus, because we believe in sort of augmenting the humans rather than replacing them. You need to look at RPA from a strategic, whole business, enterprise-wide view, not just siloed into these different departments that I've mentioned. Once you do that, you get into that really game-changing stuff of how you redeploy resources within the organization.
Yeah, it's an organizational initiative, not just an initiative of a single team, the team that's responsible for certain processes, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And when you get that high-level view, that's where you start to see all of the opportunity and see all of the savings. So there's a project that we had not so long ago where it was a massive higher education institution here in the UK, and we were brought in to automate a bunch of finance processes and a bunch of HR processes as well. Now, what they wanted to do is they were looking to get rid of the people that we had that were doing the tasks that we had automated in the HR department. And that's because they were only looking at it from a HR team perspective, sort of very siloed view of the world. When we went on their website, there's sort of 47 open vacancies that they've got. As I said, they're a huge organisation with tens of thousands of staff. So we were like, well, hang on a minute. If you were to get rid of these people, then you're going to have to pay the exit fees, the redundancy costs and things like that. You're then going to have to go and pay more recruitment fees to hire in people to go and fill these vacancies in other areas of the business. How about the project looks like this? How about we come in, we do automate the tasks and processes that you originally brought us in to do, but then we also work with you to redeploy these people into those job vacancies that you've got in other areas of the business. And part of that is nothing to do with robotic process automation. Like, yes, it is the catalyst that allows us to free these people up, but the rest of it is sort of just good transformation of your organization.
And yeah, that's where the human part of your company's name comes in, right? As you said. Exactly that. And so besides kind of being human-centered, what other key elements or kind of best practices are there to RPA implementation and operations?
For me, without doubt, the number one thing to get right is communication and comms. So this sort of robots, digital workers, call them what you will, it can be a very emotive subject. People get very scared. You mentioned that we're going to hire a digital workforce, or we're going to get some robots and bots. And people think that these robots are going to burst through the door and take all their jobs. And that's it. They are no longer required, and the robots will run the organization. Obviously, that's totally not true. The robots can't run an organization by themselves. You need the humans in which to do it. It's about getting the optimum balance between the two. Humans have evolved beyond doing, for want of a better word, grunt work. A lot of what we do starts off very basic. So it can start with, I don't think I've got a single client that we're not doing the automation of invoice processing for. I mean, nobody went to university to learn how to process invoices or sort of joined a finance team, I imagine, to learn how to process invoices. But it is a stepping stone to further things in the career. So we need to make sure that we don't wipe out all of these lower level jobs when we're doing this. So that's something that we're very conscious of. So communications, it's about communicating with the people whose lives are going to be affected by automation from day one, preferably from before day one, actually. But what we do is we work with people on the front line, as it were. So those people whose tasks and roles and jobs are going to change because of automation. We work with senior management to advise and guide them that RPA is not a silver bullet. Done incorrectly, you will create more technical debt than what you're going to release. And then we work with middle management effectively on how you can approach managing a partially digital and partially human workforce going forward. How do you get them to work best together? How do you schedule things for the digital workforce to do throughout the year that the humans will no longer need to do? And then how do you ensure the humans aren't scared of the technology and they work with it? But then also, what are you going to get the people in your team to do now? Because you've just freed up to X amount of hours per week, month, year, if you see what I mean. What is on that to-do list that you've always wanted to do as a team that you can now get to doing? So that I would say is the absolute number one. Number two, I would say, is the upskilling of your workforce. So if you don't upskill the workforce, this isn't new technology, and not to go off on a tangent, but this technology has been around sort of 12 to 15 years, I would say. It was practically invented by a company called Blue Prism. They're now one of the major vendors over at Barclays Banks. It's kind of got bank grade security and things like that to go with it. So it's been around for a while, but it's only been used in anger, let's say, the last 3 to 5 years, and it's a massively growing market. Look at any Gartner report or Forrester report, and it will show you the sort of crazy numbers of growth that we're seeing in this market at the moment. But that does mean that there isn't a huge swathe of people trained and very knowledgeable in how it works. So if I was investing in RPA and automation now, I'd be massively ensuring that my workforce would be upskilled at the same time. And that's something that we try to make sure we have as part of every project that we do. So yes, we'll come in, we'll do the first, 1 to 5 projects or something like that, but give us some of your staff, especially some staff that are being freed up through the use of this technology, and we will upskill them in how it works, not only in the pure technology, but in how to write project definition documents, in how to do business analysis, in how to go and find processes across the rest of your organization that are ripe for automation, because some are and some aren't. So sort of train them up. And what you should, at the end of a really, really good RPA program, you should have a bunch of processes that have been automated and are running with few to no exceptions. But you should also have an upskilled internal center of excellence as well. And that can be 2 people for some organizations. It could be 20. It depends on your size and complexity. But you should really be leaving that program with a bunch of people internally that know how this stuff works, to ensure, again, that companies like mine haven't created black box solutions that only they know how to operate, and you need to pay us forevermore to make sure it continues. But also, it can be very exciting for the staff internally. So if you're going to go from being an administrator or a developer or something like that to an RPA developer, that's a great career progression that you can move into. So they're getting to the opportunities that RPA is creating rather than the jobs that it's removing, if you see what I mean. So ensure that your workforce are upskilled, and communication are definitely the big 2 for me.
And they also go hand in hand, kind of, because you said earlier that a massive part of the communication is kind of helping your employees and your workforce embrace the technology, so RPA automation. And this is exactly what upskilling your workforce is about. It's not just about helping them to effectively use automation, but to actually embrace the whole mindset of automation and kind of incorporate the mindset into all of their other operations and all of their other business processes, as you said, so they're able to optimize other areas of the business that maybe haven't been taken care of in this way. So yeah. Exactly.
You want to be sort of left with your own mini consultancy internally. You can go off and hunt all these other processes and calculate the return on investment, and it's iterative. It won't ever stop, if you see what I mean. So it should be seen as something that you invest in now, and it will continue to pay dividends if done correctly. Yeah,
that's an excellent point. And okay, you've mentioned one particular Human Plus project before, but have you had any that were particularly challenging or super hard to tackle? Can you tell us a bit about that, and maybe some key lessons that you got from that?
Oh yes, we've definitely had those. Definitely had those.
Okay, I'm eager to hear more.
Yeah, I think to sort of link it to the previous point, where we've had challenges has probably come down to a lack of skills and a lack of correct communication. So it's been with stakeholders not really understanding the tools, understanding the software, understanding what RPA is and digital workers are. A lot of people, we're seeing less of this, but especially last year, a lot of people would dabble in RPA. So it sounds really cool if you're going to get some bots to do some work, and they can sort of tick their innovation box with it and things like that. So what they'll do is they'll spend sort of 50K or something on a POV or a pilot project that gets one bot to do something in one area. And then it dies a death and sort of doesn't really go anywhere. And that's normally because the senior stakeholders haven't fully understood the opportunity that is in front of them with the use of this technology. So that's a common problem with RPA never getting further than one department, or sometimes even just one process, and going enterprise-wide. But we are seeing less of that. Some of the other projects that we've had trouble with have been down to a lack of understanding and a lack of skills. So these guys have sort of gone, oh, well, we've got some devs and we've got some BAs. We'll just buy some RPA software and we'll do this stuff ourselves. And I totally see why people think that is a thing, and it's not out of the realms of possibility by any means. And there's some organisations that can definitely do that. But what often ends up happening is they get there, but they get there a lot slower than if they were to use a partner or something like that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say that I'm an RPA partner to all the big RPA vendors, but it is true in what we see that people can go a lot faster if they do use a partner, because you're not doing the full upskilling of internal team before you've seen a return on investment. And this is where the return on investments can get dwindled because it takes so much longer for them to claim them. The board get bored. The stakeholders get disengaged. It's just another tech project. It sort of didn't knock our socks off, and it didn't really wow us, and it was okay, but not great. Whereas we're able to come in and make changes very, very quickly. We've had projects completed within 8 weeks before, so that's a complete return on investment within an 8-week period. And often that really helps politically. If you can do a pilot or something like that, if you have to do a pilot and you're able to do it with a partner, then you want to pick something that is sort of politically an organisational wide problem. So we had a workshop not long ago where we were sort of going through about 20 processes, and we've got various tools we use to map the return on investment per process. And we'd gone through them, and some of them were sort of up at hundreds of thousands of pounds of returns on investment for a single process. Some of them were down at sort of 50k, and then there was one for £5,500 return on investment, and they were like, "That's the one we want to do first." We were like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, that is the most annoying, politically annoying bugbear in this organisation. If we fix that, we'll be allowed to automate anything." So that for them was the biggest win. Because what happens is they go and do that, and then everyone in the organisation is like, "Oh my God, you fixed expenses with this stuff," and they're like, "Yeah, we did." And then they suddenly want it and allow it into their bit of the organisation.
Yeah, because they see the immediate return up front, and it's not exclusively a return in finances, in numbers. In this case, it was kind of a structural, organizational return.
Yes, exactly.
Right, yeah, those are some very good examples. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, maybe moving a bit into the future, what do you think the future holds in store for RPA?
I think we're going to continue to see the growth trend. I think it will wane slightly. People talk about the growth curve of hyper automation and things like that. I think there's a lot of bare basic stuff that still needs to be done. There's millions and millions of organizations out there that aren't using any form of RPA at the moment. So I think we'll see them take it up. In terms of the vendors, I think there's some really interesting stuff going on at the moment. You're starting to see Microsoft come into the RPA space. They've recently purchased a small, medium-sized RPA company. They're hurriedly integrating that into their product. And that is going to be one of the most serious and interesting things to happen to the industry, because what we can see happening is what sort of Power BI did to Tableau. I mean, it didn't destroy it, but it certainly stopped their growth, I would say. Once Microsoft are able to start offering RPA solutions at £6 per person per month, for instance, then that's going to be a huge shake-up for the RPA vendors out there and the way in which they license and sell their products. And then we've got rumours circling around that Salesforce might be buying Blue Prism. So that's another massive player coming into the space. And a lot of these things get rumoured for quite a while, but I can see how that one might work. So I think Salesforce coming into the RPA space, hot on the tails of Microsoft, is going to be really interesting again. It's going to see changes to how things are licensed, changes to how things are sold. It will be sold as obviously, an enhancement to the Salesforce platform or to the Dynamics platform in Microsoft's case. Some really interesting times. And I think what that does, seeing the likes of Salesforce and Microsoft move into this space, is add validity to the whole of the market. Because what we've seen before is sort of UiPath Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism really coming out of 3 different countries. Massive growth as organizations over the last 10 years, just astronomical. but this will really turn that on its head if it's done right and it's sort of seen through. So I'm interested to see how they then respond, because hopefully what this will do is drive further innovation in the RPA space for them to improve their products, to push them more towards using more AI-based technologies and integration with that, so that they are sort of market leaders that differentiate themselves over some sort of standard, as it were, RPA that maybe a Microsoft or Salesforce could offer. Something else I'd like to see is a bit more innovation on that front end of what intelligent automation can do. So there are some great products out there. So the Blue Prism Cloud one is one that is probably my personal favorite. And that's because what they're doing is that truly is intelligent automation, and they're moving into starting to use a lot more of these AI-based technologies on top of the basic RPA stuff.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like exciting times are ahead, and a lot of potential, as you said, for a lot of kind of different scenarios.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, I kind of, that does it for my RPA related questions. Is there anything that you'd like to point out that maybe came to your mind while we were talking, something that we haven't discussed yet?
I think one of the main takeaways for this is about focusing on the people within your organization. Probably spend as a general rule, try and spend more time focusing on what the people within the organization will do once you've automated things, and slightly less time on which technology you're going to choose to do it with, because there's a bunch out there that are very good, and that shouldn't take up too much time really. But allowing the sort of yourself the time to think about what the humans are going to do allows you sort of the creative thinking of, right, what can we, if I magically had 10 more people in R&D or design or customer services, what would I do with them? What new products would we start to look at? What new capabilities on our platform would we start to develop? All of that stuff. And maybe I'm being a bit simplistic there, because what often happens is the people that we've freed up will need an element of retraining to go and do these different roles. So that needs to be considered as part of it as well.
And so you kind of need to see, take a look at not only what RPA or automation takes care of, but also what it enables, what promises. I mean, what potential it introduces for like further innovation and optimization.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, this RPA technology is technologies that's the most closely aligned to humans than any other technology I can think of. A CRM system or an ERP system, a CMS or something like that doesn't look to mimic a human, whereas often this does. So that's why it's very emotive. You've got to consider that when you're speaking to your staff and your people about it. But again, that's why it opens opportunities for organizations that haven't been there before.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Before we finish and before we do the closing remarks, I only have one more kind of current question. And, 2020 has been a very difficult year so far, but also one full of new opportunities. Do you have any words of advice to business owners, decision makers, kind of, as we're moving towards the very end of this super strange year?
Yeah, so not to sound like a stuck record, but for me, it would be to focus on my people. So how people treat their staff over the next 12 months as we come into probably a huge recession here in the UK, but probably worldwide, is what will differentiate them. We're all going to be under the same pressures. It's how you react to those pressures which differentiates you. It's how people will remember you. It's how your staff that do remain in the organization, they will remember how you treated their colleagues. One of the initiatives we're looking at with one of our clients at the moment, they are a non-for-profit. They're in a particularly tough sector. They've seen hundreds of thousands taken off of their revenue almost overnight. And we're looking at, they are looking to to remove staff from the organization because they just simply cannot afford to have them anymore. They want to look at automation for filling some of those gaps. But what we're looking to do is work with them on offboarding those staff before we start the project. And what that means is, as part of taking us on as a partner, we will help to upskill and train the exiting staff in elements of robotic process automation. So at least they leave with some modern, relevant skills that can hopefully help them on their next venture in the workplace. It's thinking differently, doing innovative things like that, that will allow you to not only survive, but when things have sort of turned the tide, then sort of start to thrive again.
Man, I just love your approach. From what you've told me so far about Human Plus, it seems like you really stand out in this space as a company. I mean, this particular example really shines out. It's helping businesses offboard their employees. I mean, that's so counterintuitive, but so awesome. Really great to hear. It's so cool that you mentioned this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. It's kind of, obviously, given the name, it runs through absolutely everything that we do. I love technology. I've worked in technology for 20 years, but none of it works without humans. And one of the biggest things I've learned is that if you look after the humans, the sort of technology takes care of itself, really. They are without doubt the most important part of any technology project.
Yeah, and also you've worked with humans for longer than you've worked with technology, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, thanks so much, David, for having this great chat with me today. And to our listeners, that's all for this episode. Have a great day, everyone, and stay safe.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to check out our other episodes, you can find all of them at agiledrop.com/podcast, as well as on all the most popular podcasting platforms. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes, and don't forget to share the podcast with your friends and colleagues.